In America, yeah.
I actually did used to live in America. I used to be a New Yorker. I lived there for
Wow.
like 2 years. Yeah. Both Manhattan and upstate New York.
Right.
Yeah, it was good. Good
How long have you
times.
been there this time?
I'm actually in England right now. I was joking about
yeah.
running across the pond. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's that
Okay,
weird dry English sense of humor.
Yeah, you're confusing me.
Yeah, on purpose. Yeah. I've been living in London mostly, in England, and I live in the north of England now, which comes right into the presentation we're going to do.
Nice. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into it. Like, I heard you on, on the Amish Inquisition a few times. You seem like a bit of a regular there, but I feel like we have some commonalities in our beliefs in, let's say, the New Age and the occultism and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah.
What is the Amish?
I did
the Amish Inquisition is a podcast. Were you about to say a little podcast?
Yeah, it's a little podcast. It's a little room that I go down to. I mean, most people, are on Skype or whatever, but for me, it's just around the corner. So I get down there and go and have a couple of beers with them and a good laugh.
Is it Amish like Amish?
I think it's supposed to be like Amish, as in Spanish Inquisition. The little play on
not like the Amish people.
Yeah. So rather than no one expects the Spanish Inquisition, less people expect the Amish Inquisition.
Interesting.
Yeah, we were on the show once, Darren.
Yeah, I know.
I think
the Amish thing throws me off. Is that just how Graham says it? Or
that's just how I say it.
Or is that? Oh, okay.
Amish.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it depends on where you're from. People say it different ways. But I told them they need to grow some of those beards without the mustaches.
Yeah. We don't have Amish here. We have Hutterites that are kind of like the same thing. They're not far.
Yeah, we don't have.
They use cars.
We don't have Amish here at all. I don't think there are any. We have Mormons.
They're a lot more with it. The Hutterites, like they still live on their little village on their land, like commune style, but they got some farm equipment. They got vans that they'll come into town with. You'll see them at the hospital sometimes when they have appointments or
when they have to pay their $400,000 fine for not using a Rivecan app. Did you hear about that?
Was that the Hutties?
No.
Well, no, I think that was the Amish here. So I think we might have Amish or it was the Hutterites. I don't know. Or is there another one? Is there another one, Darren, that I'm thinking of?
There might be. There's. I think there is another one. There's another one. Yeah. The Mennonites, Hutterites, and Mennonites.
No, something else. Anyways, they have a $500,000 fine almost for not using the app, but they don't have like technology, right? So they don't even have a way to get a hold of them. So they just go to get a loan from the bank and they say, no, you've got to lien on your property because you owe the government almost $500,000.
Wow. Sounds like that time they tried taxing people for rain that they collected from the roofs.
What do you mean? That's not over yet.
Is it not?
No, that'll happen.
My
bet is that's going to happen. So,
wow.
I mean, imagine if that happened up in the UK. You guys get quite a bit of rain up there.
Yeah, all the time. Look, if you got thirsty in England, you just walk outside with your mouth open. You'll soon be quenched.
So how did you get interested in all this stuff?
I took some magic mushrooms and life changed is what happened.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd already been into some spooky stuff.
Yeah.
But, I'd been investigating the universe through physics and the normal means, but I'd always had a bit of a lean to odd stuff. I liked unusual films and unusual stories and ghosts and UFOs and usual stuff. And I had this internal intuition that the universe was somehow based on music. I was really into physics, but something just kept saying music to me. And having exhausted the literature in physics, just something in me, I think I heard a Terence McKenna thing on YouTube or something, and he was saying that the shamans can see this, the ayahuasqueros can see the sounds. I'm like, oh, that sounds like what I've been getting into. Why not have a try at this thing? But I don't live near any ayahuasqueros, but where I do live is in the north of England, where we've got lovely rolling hills that go into the Lake District and the best magic mushrooms in Europe. So it turned out on the hills around the back of my mother's house were thousands of them. And as I said, I'd just been really poorly. I'd not really eaten much for a couple of months. So I'd been like on an extreme diet. And So I went and got these mushrooms, having gone through what you could consider a long meditation, and ate a load, and then tripped balls, and had all kinds of visions, including I was shown this weird geometric pyramidic structure, which will come up later, and I was shown tarot, and I was shown like an energy point on the body, and quite so many other things. It was really messed up. Without going into it,
Are we
certain
gonna?
things that I was shown and I've discovered in real life subsequently.
How much do you think you took?
Well, you got to remember, I was on an extreme diet. I anything that I was eating was coming back up, so I was really quite thin. I'd had 22 big ones, as I remember, but having not eaten anything, I couldn't tell you what that would be to a normal person. It was a heroic dose for me
Yeah,
at the time.
at least a heroic dose. So are you going to get, are those three things, like the spot on your body, is that going to come up in this presentation?
Not as much, but I can go into it towards then, because all these things kind of feed into each other as these ancient mystery traditions are kind of layered. You know, it means one thing at one level, another thing at another level, another thing at another level. But as you said, you're interested in this geometric pattern, so I thought I'll.
Well, yeah, definitely interested in that. But while you're talking about the energy point in your body, like, is that the Dantian, or what was that part?
Yeah, the Dantian, yeah. Which I didn't really know about at the time. I'm a martial artist, so I knew about it from a folklore Japanese perspective, that you know, your soul's in there. It's the center of gravity for the body. But yes, what happened was, as I came back from kind of being God, I suppose, there was only me that existed. I was in like the purest meditative place that you could ever imagine, and I woke up to consciousness. And as I actually came back to consciousness, I noticed all the stations of consciousness as I came back. And then I'm showing all these human deities like Jesuses and Buddhas and stuff like that. I'm quite anti-religious. A lot of my studies are de-occultism. You know, I look at these ancient traditions, and because I'm an artist in real life, I just have a knack for pulling out the symbology, because I need to use it for work. So yeah, as I came back from this trip, I got shown all these deities, and then suddenly this pyramidic structure, and as this happened, my lower dantian exploded into what I can only call a one-dimensional stained glass window that just burst out of me and went off into the universe. And I turned around and saw this geometric thing, and a male voice spoke to me and said, "You've got to build Solomon's temple." There you go. I'd taken lots of mushrooms. What can I say?
Had you even heard about Solomon's Temple prior to that?
No.
I mean,
no.
not.
Maybe, I must. Have,
maybe heard of it, but not studied it.
Yeah, not studied it. No.
Wow.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, my occult. Well, not long after I found this pattern I'm going to show you today, I found that Isaac Newton had also drawn the layout for Solomon's Temple by this pattern.
Wow. So is that Dantian? Is that the same as one of the chakras, the 7 chakras of, you know, the Vedas and all that kind of stuff? Is it?
Yeah, in the West, it's associated with the moon and with Virgo. It's that area. See the 12 signs of the zodiac are actually like the head, Aries, the face and neck are Taurus. So that loop of animals goes down your body. So by the time you get to Virgo, the Virgin, she holds a shaft of wheat and is considered like a storehouse of energy. Well, so the Dantian in Chinese is represented by a shaft of wheat. It means like the elixir field, where you can grow like as you would wheat, this elixir, this magnetic field. So
it's the sacral then?
Yeah, it's the sacral plexus. Yeah, which is the keystone to the Masons, which we'll get into during this presentation.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome.
So are you really into all this chi stuff?
I mean, I had like a Kundalini awakening about 10-12 years ago, I guess, but that's what I think of now. But no, I mean, I've got, you know, I've kind of come in and out of it a little bit over the years, you know, but I'm
going to do a presentation on the Amish Inquisition on the 1st of September on the lower Dantian and Chi and European alchemy and Hermetics and all this stuff. So after I've done that, I can hit you guys up, and maybe I can do it on here as well at some point.
Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah. It's such a fascinating topic because right now there's so much like there's so much of a need for de-occultism because like maybe before we get in your presentation we can talk about that a little bit at a higher level, like because there seems to be a battle against the new age right now, and I find myself sort of slipping in and out of that a little bit because I also resonate with kind of Jesus's teachings a little bit, even though I'm not there yet, but as far as like the message and all that goes, but
sorry, go on.
But there's so much symbolism happening right now, like real occult symbolism. And part of me is like, well, they're just using that. That doesn't mean that those symbols are evil. I mean, and you're probably going to get into some of this in your presentation, but it's just being used. It's how it's being used is the main thing. But there's a real, like, what do you think about this battle against the new age right now?
Well, so the new age, well, it depends. Everything is like a gun. It depends how you pick it up and you use it. You can use it for your own personal defense or to attack somebody. So the new age has a lot of holes in it. And as you were just describing, then there's like this, you've kind of got you've got two competing religions, really. One, which is like a neo-paganism, the new age, and then Christianity and the likes, the older religions. Not that new age religions don't take a lot from past religions. That's kind of what they are.
Yeah, they're a conglomeration of all that knowledge, I would say, right?
But it's this pick and chooseness about it, and there's no gatekeepers really, aside from people that you can trust that have maybe gone further down the path than you. But because there's no gatekeepers, you get a lot of silly stuff. You do. It's almost like any path you go down blindly or with faith, you're gonna come a cropper because of the simple fact that there's so much woo. There's so much. I mean, there's real woo and then there's silly woo. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of nodding. I should have clarified what I meant. I'm not like putting the silly woo aside, just the core of the new age. And what I mean by that is that now there's people, like Blavatsky warned people not to go in, not do what you said right there, right? Like, don't go into this willy-nilly. Don't like, you need to be initiated. You need to take this seriously. Even yoga, all these basic things. She was like, be careful with that. Don't go into it unless you're experienced. And yet that whole movement gets blamed for the New World Order, and they're in the UN right now and all this stuff. And it's like, well, wait a second here. That connection to me is kind of spurious, like you can't really.
They are using occultism. Yeah. And they're getting it from the likes of Blavatsky. But again, it's not Blavatsky's fault. They're not the gun's fault. It shot somebody.
Exactly.
So, these things can be used for good or evil. It just so happens that the occult stuff is so powerful. That's why it was saved and hidden. Occult means you can't see it, So it does tend to use hidden forces, but it also uses hiding as a means of preserving itself and distributing itself to the correct people. Unfortunately, as with the NWO, the wrong people have already got hold of it. So it's up to the likes of us guys to de-occult it, as we said, to profane the mysteries.
Right.
Would it be de-occult or decult? Interesting.
I would have thought decult sounds like you're already a member of a cult, whereas the occult might have cult, but it isn't a cult.
I just wonder, it almost seems like could be what do they call it when you add it to the front of the word? I don't know, the
prefix.
Yeah, prefix. It seems like the OC could be a prefix to cult already. It's like a hidden cult.
Yeah. So, I mean, we need to come up with a better word than de-occult. It's very clunky.
Well, how long till Graham finds Jesus? I mean, we got to get this poll going on the show. What episode it's gonna be?
I think I'm still too new agey for it, honestly. Except that there is a bit of a crossover, with like,
Well, here's the thing. If you look to the Greek tradition, you've always got this balance between the Apollonian and the Dionysian. Apollo's like the sun god, the good god. Dionysus is this god of madness and letting go and very feminine. So you've got this sun and moon, yin and yang thing always going on, and that's what Christianity is currently. It's the yin to the yang of the new age. And I think a sensible person would pick and choose from them both. because joining a church is kind of silly unless
Oh
you
yeah,
like the
no.
community as well.
Well, not a church. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of our past guests that have sort of gone this way have been. It's non-denominational. You know, it's not churchy at all. It's just basically Jesus's teachings. I think, which I think would probably fit better with the New Age than any kind of church stuff. You know, I mean, it's like all the Christians that like the factions of Christians that got persecuted by the Catholic Church. I mean, they were sort of put under that umbrella.
Yeah, but here's the thing. All of those non-denominational Christians have told me that if I don't believe in Jesus, I can't get into the afterlife, or I don't get to survive revelations or whatever. So, I mean, that is kind of, is that just one of Jesus's teachings then?
I don't know about that.
Or is that
what if
like
you lived on an island?
thing?
What if there was only you on an island? You'd never met anybody. You'd never met a Christian. You'd never heard of Jesus. You live on an island and then you die on the island.
Yeah, that's your tough luck. Or I've had the one guy, the guy who really didn't like the Jews. He said that, well, there's like a provision for those people. If they've never heard the word of God, then there might be a special provision for them. But everyone else, it don't matter if they came here conquering, or otherwise, you had your chance, is kind of how it's been played out to me. But I just think that, because that is the thing that ties them all together. Other than, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff, because if you're following the Christian faith, there's a bunch of probably great things that they all have in common as well. They're all pretty kind, they're all nice. As far as I know, they're all good people. But that seems to just always be a sticking point with me, is that they've got that, well, you're not surviving the thing unless you join up.
No, I don't think you're talking about the same people that I'm talking about.
Well,
I think
John Brisson, right? John Brisson's on that list.
I don't think is he in that category? I mean,
he wouldn't be here to warn me because I don't believe in Christ. So he's like, if he said he wouldn't be here to warn me about that, because he didn't come out and say it, but the implication was that I'll already be ascended, bro, and you won't, because you haven't taken Jesus on as your savior.
That ascension thing, what's it called when everyone suddenly gets taken up?
Yeah, ascension, I think. Yeah.
Or whatever it is. That thing actually comes from this town that I'm in. It was a Wesleyan priest went over to the States, but he'd made it up here about 100 years ago. It's not even that old. And then everyone gets taken up, don't they? Bodily.
Yeah.
Well, look, for me, it's as easy as this. All the religions, you can look at the Bible, you can see where that came from in Babylon and Sumeria. All the stories are spread around everywhere. It's not like they've not made it all up. They have. It's not written by God. It's written by people. You can see it's written by people because those stories are copied, and those stories are copied, and you can trace it right the way back to the beginning of language. And so the doctrines from any church are silly. However, there are in all of them the same core truths. They might differ a little, but between them all, they all share the same truths. And, the truth of Jesus is really what Jesus is the masculine archetype for Western people. It's sacrifice yourself, bear your cross. It's going to be bloody difficult. No one's really going to love you. They'll persecute you, but you've got to put up with it. The male sacrifice for your family, for your job, whatever. And that's what it is the top of the hierarchy, Jesus. That's what he really is that thing that you want to try and be.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So I think for me, it's looking to these things and having those things aspire.
Yeah. Darren, do you have anything to build on that, or do you want to move on?
No, we can move on. To be clear, it's not like Ryan was doing that. And neither is Graham, but it's just like, that just seems to be the tie-in between all these Christians things, because like we've been talking about how there's a bunch of them and there's no tie, it just sort of all seems random. And then I was like, I've just been thinking about it, because I'm like, the thing all these non-denom seem to have in common is that I'm out unless I pick, I can be a non-denom. I don't have to pick a denomination, but I do have to, or at least they're not putting any pressure on me. I wouldn't say they're evangelizing, but they are just like, just throwing that out there that, well, you're not coming, bro.
You have to do the thing.
Is like a side pressure thing to try and get me in, it's just like or else why would it be there? Because it's just like,
can I save your soul?
I would say,
they want to save your soul.
Yeah, can I just be like following Christ's teachings? Isn't that because that's what I always come back to? If you're just following the shit that Christ thought was good, and that turns out to be the way that things are, wouldn't that be good enough? Or is Christ so spiteful that he's like, nah, man, no. You see right here, you didn't do it.
You didn't pray enough.
You're out.
So do you want to move on to your presentation?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see if I can get this thing working here properly. I think I have it here. So I think, can you see it there? I think I just have I can arrow through all these picks. I think, is that the start of it? Eliphas Levi?
That is the start of it. Yeah.
All right. I have Eliphas's book on my wish list for making an audiobook out of it. The history of magic one. I really want to do that.
Yeah. Nice. So where does this begin? Apart from the trip that I talked about at the beginning, one night while studying tarot, I came across Eliphas Levi's work, and he'd had a lot of influence on the tarot. We can see a Wheel of Fortune card in the bottom right-hand corner. Although that's a later card, it was absolutely inspired by Eliphas Levi's work. Here in the center, we can see a repeat of the same themes in that Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune's an old medieval motif for the Wheel of the Heavens, the Wheel of Fate spinning around you as the planets and the stars go around and the day ends and begins again. That's fate spun out by the gods. So the Wheel of Fortune, Fortuna, your luck. They say that if you are having bad times, when you're down at the bottom of the wheel, if you can cling on, you can be at the top again. So, excuse me. So I happened to look at a book by Eliphas Levi, which I can't remember the title of now.
Transcendental Magic, probably.
It's one of his shorter ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can't remember, but this image is called the Key to the Great Arcanum. Arcanum means secret, and Eliphas Levi was always touting himself as a guy that knew the stuff. So I started looking at this image, and straight away I noticed that something was the same and something was different. So the thing that's the same as the card in the center image is the card in the bottom right-hand image, is that you've got these lion, bull, eagle, and man around it, which make up a sphinx. Those four animals come together and make a composite sphinx. And that the center image has a Sator square on there, which is a square of 5 by 5 letters that reads Sator, Aripo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas. Another thing that they have in common is that the name of God's written around the outside of the wheel. On the larger image, we can see it in Hebrew with lots of dots and dashes to make up the 4 letters. It says Yehovah. It's Yod, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And so while I'm looking at these, I'm starting to get inklings that, like, oh, I'm starting to decode this because of all my previous experience looking at alchemy and Kabbalah and all these other things. That I'm starting to get it, and not to mention there's a key on there and a few other bits that were leading me to something. So I thought maybe this Sator square would have something more to tell me. So I looked on Wikipedia and I found that 2 of the oldest Sator squares in the world are actually in England. One of them in a museum in Manchester, which wasn't too far away. And then I realized that the other one was in a churchyard about 10 minutes away from my house.
Nice.
And it was about midnight in the middle of winter. So I just hopped in the car, drove through all these country roads, ended up at this spooky churchyard, and it was so cold, and just walked through at midnight. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. There we go. So I got to this churchyard. And if we go to the next slide.
Okay.
Next slide, Jamie.
So this is in the north of England, in a place called Rivington.
Oh, that looks beautiful.
It is. It's gorgeous up there. This is literally one. So in the 1300s, there was a chapel built. Now, to put it in context, 1300s is just after Templar time, and you can that Sator square is also called a Templar square. So if we go on to the next image, please. So here is some ruined pillars, and on the next image we'll see, but not yet, we'll see there's a Sator square on there as well. But as I'm looking at them, and currently having been studying tarot, I'm starting to see all kinds of things that I wouldn't expect to see in a church. I can see a Pythagorean tetractys and a wheel of fortune in that center image at the bottom. We've got a guy on a horse, looks like he's trampling through a field, and the image on the left is just full of just such weird magic looking geometry and words and
runes.
It says like Bwigzig P. They're not English words. It's just really strange. It's got serpents on there, and well, I think I show a highlighted image later, but nonetheless, they're not very Christian images. So if we go on the next image, there we go. There's the Sator square, and on the same pillar we can see this character in the top left, and then there's a Jesus below him. And
wow,
I didn't know it yet, but there's the whole of the secret science of the Masons, the Templars. It's in tarot, it's in the pyramids, it's at Stonehenge. The whole of this secret science is encapsulated in these pillars. Amazingly,
at that church that's near your place.
Yeah. So
Holy
this had been
shit.
from a chapel that had been ruined some time ago, and the stones were in a rich man's garden, and the church said to the rich man that you can keep as many stones as you want, but give us back the holy, the sacred stones. So these were these stones, but they've just unceremoniously dumped them in a churchyard.
Wow.
But they don't know what I know. I assume they don't, else they wouldn't have them just outside.
What's that guy holding? What's that guy holding there in his right
holding
hand?
a globus cruciger, which is something of a symbol of the lower Dantian, but it holds this geometry, which is this Earth-Moon ratio, planet, the size of the planets. It's the music of the spheres, it would have been known as. So I should translate this square. So I'm getting the vibe that this character in the top left isn't so much God of the Christians, but Saturn, the old god of time.
Would that be a Roman god then? Was Saturn a Roman god?
Yeah, yeah. It would have been Kronos. Yeah, it would have been Kronos before that.
Before they became Christians, right?
Yeah, and well, the Christians do take on that Saturn god. So as this is early medieval Christianity, I'm not too sure if Saturn's still kind of playing a role there. But anyway, this square reads Sator Aripo Tenet Opera Rotas, which means the sower, Saturn, it's the same root word, Saturn. The sower, Aripo, which is like a name, holds the works of the wheels. So this is like, why would Saturn be holding the son of Saturn beholding the works of the wheels? And it just appeared to me that Saturn is this. So there's lots of names for God in the Old and New Testament. One of them is El, the Elohim, etc. Well, El is the top guy, Saturn, Kronos, time. So I'm thinking, there's something going on here. So there's the sun under him, which is Jesus in this context, but early medieval Christianity could still be Dionysus or somebody like that that's also feeding into this, because I've got sense from the rest of the pillars that the Christianity is something of a veneer, especially as this square is to do with the Templars, and he's also called a Templar square, and in fact comes from Mithraism, the old Roman competitor religion to Christianity, which was a mystery tradition in itself.
Wow. And let's just expand on that a bit, because Tenet goes across the middle both ways, and Sator goes across the top and down the left side, and Rotas goes down the right side and across the bottom. So I don't know if Oripa I don't know if the other words are repeated vertically as well as horizontally, or
you can read it in lots of different directions, basically.
Interesting.
There are lots of other names encoded into here, For example, famously, Pater Noster, which means our Father. But the Christians like to say that it was a Christian, it's our Father who art in heaven. Well, there's Mithraic grades, and one of them was called Pater Noster, which is the Saturn grade in that religion. So there are other words in that Sator square as well. You've got Aeon, which is the Greek god of time before time. It's like reality before it split into two, before yin and yang happened, essentially, before we had male and female. And he's called Aeon. And if you start in the top left-hand corner, go one letter in for the A, and then you can go diagonally down, right one, up diagonally, right one for the O, and then you score it through to the N, and you get this Aeon. His wife's also in here, Eternitas is an eternity. There's so many, and you're basically just tracing patterns onto this little square. Can we see a couple of slides down? If that's
it's like
in fact, I tell you what, let's decode this while we're here. We can go back to that.
There's like a few things that sort of repeat in there too. That's kind of interesting. It's almost like a mirror version of itself.
Well, that's what I was explaining.
TRT and TRT and TPT and TPT and OO and AA.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we zoom out a little bit, let's actually go way ahead and I'll just get the decoding out of the way. So here's the thing. There's a certain canon of numbers in the occult. You'll see it in the Bible, you see it in the Vedas, you see it in the Quran, you see it in all the religions, and that's these certain numbers: 144, 432, 216, 72. You have 72 names of God in the Shem Ham-Farash and all that stuff. 108 beads on the rosary, 108 in Jainism and Buddhism.
And the cosmic distances.
Yeah, all that stuff. So, having said that, that's where we're going to end up. But here, we're getting clues that's what we're talking about. So we've got this Wheel of Fortune, which is the heavens spinning around us. We've got the four creatures from the zodiac. And I will say that there's a Wheel of Fortune also on the pillars as well, which I didn't know until I got there. So around this wheel, we have a bull, a lion, an eagle, and a man, which the bull is Taurus, the lion is Leo, the lion. The eagle is Scorpio, because Scorpio actually has three things associated with it. A scorpion, a serpent, and an eagle, Aquila the eagle. They're all just astronomical constellations. And then we have the man, whom is Aquarius. We also have around that wheel the word T-A-R-O, tarot, and not forgetting that Sator is just that word with an S on it. And we also have the name of God again, Yod-He-Vav-He, Jehovah, Yahuwah, however you want to pronounce that. Now, if we look at the Eliphas Levi image, what we can see is he's made it up of dots, saying almost like, count me, count me. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What is Jehovah in Gematria? Gematria is when you substitute Hebrew letters for numbers. And isopsophy is when you do it with Greek letters for numbers. So I did the Gematria, and it ended up being 26. The name of God equals 26. I did it for the signs of the zodiac and just counted their position in the zodiac. So the bull's the second, the lion's the fifth, then 10th, and then 12th, 11th, whatever it is. I can't quite remember what it is. But that also added up to 26. And I'm like, well, that's got to be the 26,000 year processional cycle of 25,920 years. And I'm like, whoa, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about procession, often cited to be the major secret of the Masons. So if we go on to, I tell you what, I'll decode the Sator square now. So aside from talking about all these Saturnian gods, again, time, and we've already got time out of this long count, 25,920 year cycle. We know about that, don't we, surely?
Yeah.
So, so what happens is we're talking about magicians here, so there's a couple of layers to decode this. So first of all, I exchange all those letters for Hebrew numbers.
Okay.
You know, I exchange those Latin letters for Hebrew letters. And the thing is that there are certain letters like the T that could be Tav or Tet. So there are actually two T's to choose from. So rather than go with the obvious T, I translated it with a not so obvious T. And it's the same for the letter O as well, and the letter I think it's just the letter O and the letter R as well. So all I'm doing is either choosing the obvious one or the not so obvious one. And as soon as I chose the not so obvious letters to juxtapose, each of those rows basically read numbers like 432, 108, 2160, these hyperharmonic processional numbers. So there you go. If we want to go on to the later slide.
No, I mean, that's fascinating because we just did a Music of the Spheres with Jordan Collin talking about all these numbers, and we've been sort of hitting this for the last few months. So this is
that's
really
great.
good time, really good timing. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the pillars, there's a guy with holding a key with two heads to it. And I know from studying the rest of the mysteries that the god with two heads or a key is Janus, who's a Saturnian time god. He looks to the past and to the future. He's January. And who else has those keys? Well, the Pope has those keys. We can see the cross keys in the bottom of the image there. Those are the keys of the Pope. So I started looking at the things to do with the Pope, because what it was that he'd taken these two keys from the pagan tradition and assumed them as his own. These are St. Peter's keys as much as they're anything, the keys to heaven. Well, I'm already thinking the keys to heaven would be the keys to something up there, up in the cosmos. So I looked at the Vatican, and if you look at St. Peter's Basilica, you can see that it's in the shape of a key going down the promenade, and then the key heads in this little pentagonal castle just a bit further down this promenade. And then within that that key handle was a Vesica Pisces, Vesica Piscis. So straight away I'm going, this is all cosmic geometry stuff. I need to look into this further. So I looked at the two keys, and it turned out what the two keys were in Mithraism. We've already said this Sator square was Mithraist, and it's the key to spring and the key to autumn. Really, it's the keys to winter and then the keys to summer, but it's the keys to winter. So we're talking about shamanic journeying style. We're in the depths, right in the depths here.
The equinoxes.
Yeah, and the depths of psyche. And the point at where those equinoxes cross is where it goes with the galactic center. Like, so you can see the band of the Milky Way overhead. Well, these are the points where the ecliptic of the Earth, actually is the ecliptic, where the ecliptic crosses, which is where the planets go around, crosses with the band of the Milky Way. And they saw it as a path of gods to go to special places. It all turns out to be mushroom allegories, but I think the most important thing here is that they're showing us something about this. That, okay, yes, there's a shamanic part to it where you take loads of drugs and journey to a timeless place, much like I did on my trip, but also that we have this sacred science attached to it. And how are they showing us that? Well, they show it, if you go down to the bottom of the image, please. It's shown us through the two pillars at the front of Solomon's temple, with which are Masonic pillars, Boaz and Yakin. We have the pillar on the left, which has the earth at the top of its capital, and on the right, Yakin has the zodiac at the top of its capital. Well, what that's showing you is the axis, the pole of the earth, and the pole of the ecliptic, the pole of the zodiac. The plane that the planets spin around has its own pole, and we're slightly off from that by 23 and a bit degrees on average. So this is what the two pillars of, aside from some energy stuff, this is what the two pillars and the two keys are. It's showing you that to look at precession, because the main thing that comes out of these two poles being at a different angle to each other, apart from days and nights and things like that, is this long calendar count of precession. I'm really giving the abbreviated version of this.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
So these things are symbolized on these pillars. Yeah, it was fine to go on that one. These things are abbreviated on these. These are symbolized on the pillars by such animals as the Sphinx, which is this 26,000 year cycle in these 4 animals condensed into 1 animal. That's all I have to say for that slide.
All right. Is that still at that pillar? Still at the one you're looking at? Okay.
So now, knowing that there's this, we'll go further into the numbers and the cool things in this, as I call it, secret science in a moment. But I want to show how it's back in history too. So there are the pillars. That the statue on the right there is the entrance to the gates at Babylon. You know, this stuff's so ancient, and he's a lion, a bull, an eagle, and a man put together.
Right. That's
And
so weird. I just saw an
Sorry.
ancient text on how that was moved with with thousands of men or hundreds of men. Really weird that was the one I saw yesterday. I was watching it.
Cool.
They had some sort of description on how it was moved, but I think it's only 6 tons or something. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Well, it's big though, isn't it? It's unwieldy.
Oh yeah, no, it's still. I mean, 6 tons is still a lot, but
yeah,
it's not like 500 like some of them. But.
No. So, what I want to show with this is that it's as far back as Babylon, Sumeria, but also it's as far forward as it's in Christianity. You'll often see Jesus within that Basic Piscus that I was talking about, which is the foundation of all sacred geometry. He's in one there, surrounded by the lion, the bull, the eagle, and man, as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are literally those same deities, as they were, injected into Christianity. Because Christianity, as with all the religions, takes its myth from astrotheology, from up there, which is ultimately our bodies re-signified up there. It's just that people that couldn't read and write had this amazing artwork above their heads, so they put memes in there. So we can see it with Ezekiel or one of those guys in the top left, and actually all that ascension literature where you're having these guys go up through levels like 7 heavens, and then they see the wheels with many eyes and things like that. Well, the wheels are the same wheels as we've been talking about as this Sator who knows the works of the wheels. These are the same wheels. The wheels with the eyes around them, the angels, is the stars spinning around your head, and the angels are the angles. You know, there's 72 angels. Well, that's the 72 angles around the circle, which again is getting back to all this processional stuff. That's what they're talking about.
Whoops. Hang on a
That's
second.
all right.
I got stuck on the button there.
So yeah, it's all calendrical. It's all above your head. Here is a version of that same idea, this wheel of fortune on the pillars as well. I've highlighted all these bits in Photoshop. Somebody accused me of chalking over these ancient pillars. I'm like, no, it's just Photoshop. So when I added all those letters up and did the gematria in it turned out to be the same as I think you've had Alan Green on before.
Yeah, a few times. Yeah.
So yeah, it turned out to be the same as the Shakespeare code, the 216 and all that stuff. I can't remember his numbers, but it was those same numbers. And I got hold of Alan, and he was like, "Yeah, that's the same." So I looked at Dee's work, and it turned out that John Dee had been deacon or dean or whatever he was of the local university at the time that this church was standing, and it has the date on some newer pillars from when John Dee was around. So I'm thinking maybe he had something to do with this.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It certainly starts off being Templar, then looks Rosicrucian later on. But I would like to say on that circle as well, one thing that really gave it away to me is it actually has the numbers. You can see it in pink in the top left-hand corner of that central wheel. It has the number 72 written on there, which is a processional day and like the root of all this stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it's all down to procession. And why do these numbers come out of procession? Well, over 25,920 years, if you see that as a year, like a circle, and then you divide that circle by 360, you get all these amazing numbers out of it. 72, 108, 144, 432, things like this. Why are these numbers so amazing? Well, those are tunings. They're like the hyperharmonic numbers. They team up with so many other numbers in so many other ways. It's amazing. You can divide them really easily. You can multiply them really easily. I found out that you can put them into Pythagorean right-angled triangles, and they do amazing things that you wouldn't believe, but that'd be another podcast in itself. I think that's why the Masons are so obsessed with the Pythagorean triangle, because of these numbers. Because you plug them in and it starts predicting all kinds of weird stuff. Mathematics.
And they were building cathedrals and all kinds of ancient structures based on these numbers too, which
absolutely
makes you wonder how much power they had in there. Or,
So here I'm just showing that this idea of the cross keys are the pillars, or the Chi-Rho, as it's called, and the caduceus. They're all the same symbol. On one level, it is this two pillars idea and showing you a procession. On another level, it is kind of the masculine and feminine energies for energy work and stuff like that. Which
the one has the medical thing on it too, right? The one on the far left.
Say that again, sorry.
It's got like that snake that the medicine people always use. The medical field.
So I've put that over the top to show it's the same symbol. So the Chi-Rho is Christian, and the caduceus with the two serpents up it is ancient Greek. I mean, it's ancient Babylonian, really, but
which it also, I think it's also in here, right? In Elvis Levi's in the bathroom. There it is.
So that's because it's his phallus as well. It's really your spine and the energy going up your spine, but because you waste a lot of energy procreating or not, it's one of the things you've got to watch out for when you're doing energy stuff. You just got to hold it in, boy. So here's something interesting. I found a picture of a Janus character holding the two keys to autumn and winter, and it says IHS above it. Now IHS is a Jesus thing. It also has IHS on all over the pillars. It also says INRI, and it also says INUS or something like that. It had another variation of it. And by playing with these variations, all of these things being actually numbers, it was for INRI, which is at the top of Jesus, where he's been crucified. It's Jesus Nazarene Rex Judea, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Some people say it means fire, water, air, and earth in Hebrew. But when you look at the gematria of it, when you extract those numbers, you can see the maths down here. So I can't actually see it, so let me find it on my computer. One moment. So it says IHS equals 107, and I've broke it down underneath it. I equals 9, H equals 8, S equals 90. Then all you do is 9 times 8 times 90 is 6480, which is 1/4 of 25,920, which is that long processional year. Underneath that, I've done it for INRI. So that's 138, I is 9, N is 40, R is 80, I equals 9. Then you just multiply those together and you get 25,920 with an extra zero. But, no one's bothered about an extra zero.
No.
So I find that with Ichthys, all the Christian acronyms, is it acronym the right word?
Yeah.
All the Christian acronyms do that. They all point to this long current processional calendar.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's
so
a great find.
So now, what is that? Well, this is the angle of the Earth, which is 23.5 degrees. That's what. So we've got the planets going around on their own plane, and then we've got the Earth tilted very slightly off that plane. But you can see it when the planets don't go across the horizon; they go from one corner going up. That's because of this tilt. Well, the ancients were really aware of this, and they encoded it in all the stuff because they're encoding all this processional harmony, these amazing numbers into the buildings, into the pyramids, into the temples, into the Parthenon, into Stonehenge, into all the cathedrals, as you said. So what's happening here? Well, what they've done is found this amazing shape. So I keep wanting to say his name was Jack Higgins, Frank Higgins was a turn of the century Masonic author, and he showed me, I mean, not personally, he's dead, but he showed me through his books this special trapezium called he called it the Jehovah trapezium. Now, we've already said Jehovah, Yod He Vav He, and we know there's numbers attached to it, 10, 5, 6, and 5. Well, when you add those, when you take those measurements and put them together, you get this trapezium, which is this shape. We can see it in the bottom right hand corner over a sphinx. So that's a trapezium now. Now, when I looked at it, that trapezium not only broke down into the angles at the angle that the Earth's at, but it does it through two special triangles, which are both Pythagorean. The 3, 4, 5 one that the Masons love, and a special one which is all over these other angles. We can see top left Sumeria, bottom left Babylon. Then we've got Osiris one from that. Then that's Aeon from Mithraism, holding it there. He's on the pillars, holding this angle. It's this special triangle that is the angle of the Earth and Pythagorean. That's what's amazing. So when you put those two things together, the outsides of that trapezium literally say Yod He Vav He, Jehovah. And if we look in the top right hand corner, that's the court outside St. Peter's. And when I did, I just did the geometry, I followed the circles, did the Vesica Pisces, lo and behold, it's showing the angle of the Earth. And you can't see the rest of the key shaft, but it's clearly showing you a key. So I'm like, well, I know where the key's going. It's going up into the cosmos, into this processional geometry that's all over Christianity, all over everything. And its oldest form seems to be in the Sphinx, which is these 4 animals that add together to make that 26,000-year cycle. Amazing.
It is amazing.
So, the keystone of the Masons fits into a special geometry. Now they keep this same geometry, this same. If we look in the top right, if you could unfold that geometry, it would make this trapezium. Okay, I've not put it on here, but we've seen the trapezium. If you unfold what's in the top right, you can reorder it to make the trapezium. I discovered a pattern after that weird trip. I found it in images of sheep. I was looking for a pattern in tarot and other things, and just a series of weird circumstances, I got this pattern recognition, and I found it in examples of somebody called Sheila Nagig, which is this woman holding a vagina open on the front of medieval churches. Weird. But I just had this pattern recognition. Originally, the pattern itself, if you're into the sacred geometry stuff, you'll have seen it. It's a chap called John Michel found it in England, and it's a pyramid with the Earth around it and then a little moon on top. Well, this is that same geometry. It's extrapolated somewhat, but I found it separately. But I've got to give credit to John Michel for finding it first.
Yeah.
So all it is it's 7-sided geometry with a few little Pythagorean triangles and a few circles and things like that to help you construct it. But it's 7-sided geometry, and because a 7-sided shape isn't equal, you need to take another one, flip it upside down, and make it a 14-sided shape. Simple as that. And that 14-sided shape fits that folded up Masonic keystone perfectly. Like every line is accounted for. Okay, if we move on to the next image.
Okay.
I know I'm not giving much breathing room, but I'm trying to condense it.
No. This is good. I'm just looking. I want to find something to add to this too. But go ahead.
I'm happy to go over all this one with them. So what happens then? What happens if you put these numbers into this pattern that I've found? Other people have seen this, but they've just not taken the pattern as far as I've taken it. Well, first of all, from the construction of the pattern, which is based on that Vesica Pisces, Vesica Piscis, you get all kinds of golden ratios, harmonics, square roots, all kinds of cool things. Golden ratio famously being based on square root of 5, among other things. So what do we get? Well, we get a big triangle. If we look in the top left, we can see there's like an overriding triangle. Well, that's this exact same size as the pyramids. And I will say there's a big triangle on my pillars, and that is the exact same dimensions of that as well. You get the size of the Earth, the size of the Moon. You can work out the distance between the planets. We'll see this later. It is time itself. When you take those numbers and put them into day-to-day time, it's like an amount of blinks per day, average amount of breaths per day. You know,
seconds. I mean, dude, I can't believe you're talking about all this right now. I mean, honestly, like it's a bit random that we're having you on, because Darren and I have been talking about this on like 3 or 4 shows now, how time correlates to all this. And it's
my favorite one I found out it's the square root of speed of light is the square root of 432, but also it's 144 nautical miles per second speed of light.
Oh, see, I don't even know if we've had that one. I'm gonna just show you.
Say that again.
So which one?
Two.
So the square root of 432 is the speed of light.
Keep going. And then the nautical miles.
And it's 144 nautical miles per thousand per second is the speed of light.
Is that the $50 Dynasty page?
That's the same sort of that looks like, I think they got this from that's our friend's band page. Really cool album, but it's very similar to what you were showing us with
nice. I saw Black Sun there.
With the moon on top and all that. And, yeah.
Cool. So that's amazing, because I mean, so far I'll have proved that it's on some pillars from the 1300s and in tarot cards. You'll have to take my word for that, but it's in tarot cards. Well, hang on a minute. It's pretty amazing that they knew the size of the moon in medieval times, isn't it? That's not the half of it.
And all these celestial things. See, this is exactly this is exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah. So if you can read that more easily than I can, I'll zoom in. We can read a few of those off. These are pinched from other people's sites. I have left attributions in there, so I'm not stealing. So what's that? So 108 moons. The distance between the Earth and the Moon is 108 moons. The distance between the Earth and the Sun is 108 suns. The distance between one edge, the diameter of the Sun is 108 Earths. How's about that?
Yeah. But not only that, you've got the 432,000 miles and the 3960 and the 1080 in there as well. I mean, it's mind blowing.
It gets absolutely crazy.
The diameter of the sun lines up with the amount of seconds in a day too.
Is it 7.4
It's like 844, 84 something.
846 probably. And the other thing is the moon travels its diameter in 1 hour, I think. So there's some other which really connects our time scale to these sacred dimensions.
So
sacred
it's a shame that you're so well versed in this, because I was talking about the Pythagorean 3-4-5 triangle before.
Yeah.
I do truly believe. Oh, well, there's one now. So I do truly believe that when you plug these numbers into that triangle, that what they're getting at is the base pixel, as it were, the base building block for everything.
Yeah. Right.
So that's the fundamental.
So everything in our solar system or everything in the universe? I mean, is this sacred dimension solar system based, like only our unique little system? I mean,
I couldn't answer that, but what I can say is that when I said before, shieling a gig is this effigy of a lady kind of pregnant, opening a vagina up from medieval churches. Might be a good thing to look into, anybody listening later. Well, what she's doing, if she's based on this geometry and she's kind of occulting this geometry, and she's like a cosmic mother, and she's opening up a vagina, that must be showing her internal workings. So
Like
that's how I think they're seeing it.
That could tie into that old stuff where we're just inside some greater being, and the reason we're all spread out, and that's how the cells kind of look in our body. If it's all 99% empty space, then the inside of your body is, mostly empty too.
So you've got it there. I think that this is possibly the geometry of the vacuum. That's what I think.
Do you
If I was to
think
put
it
it
is
into
a
scientific
vacuum?
terms. Excuse me?
You think it is a vacuum?
Well, no. But in common parlance,
The zero point
0.3.
kind of thing. The 0
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
I
the
mean,
geometry of
that's
the 0.
that's dude. I mean, that's what Malcolm Bendall and Jordan Collin and these guys have been saying about his clean technology that's based on all these dimensions. Like he's using these dimensions and creating a technology that will transmute materials. Like, have you ever heard of Bob Grenier at all? His work?
Bobby
What's he
G.
doing?
He's going to show you. He's a part of like sort of cold fusion research from like a Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, but he's showing a lot of these ancient symbols that you're showing in scanning electron microscopes of transmuted materials. Like have you ever heard of the Hutchinson effect? The guy
Yeah.
like his stuff that looked at through a microscope, and you're seeing ancient. There's like I heard you and the guys talking about it on the Amish Inquisition about the yin and the yang, right? He's
Okay,
showing
yeah.
that. He's showing the yin and the yang in microscopic like transactions or transmutations
Oh, right.
between
Yeah.
materials. Like,
Entanglement. Yeah. In the
dude,
entangled particles. It's amazing.
He's got like there's some interesting work going on that ties all this together with modern like particle science and molecular science, and it's like modern alchemy, dude. It's happening. He's showing that these things are transmuting.
I'd love to see where this work takes me next, because I've got a book to finish. I've got a film for Netflix to finish for this.
Well, then you should check out the Tychos model next. I think.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, no, it's amazing. That fits into all this stuff. I've not figured it out, but it's like it's so obvious the two come together.
It's because I was going to ask you. I mean, how do we get to this all lining up? The stars have stayed the same for at least 10,000 years. It would seem like, or moved very gradually. It honestly seems like they just sort of, over the period of infinity, they're just going to wobble back and forth between Polaris and Vegas, right? Is it Vegas? Is Vegas the other North Star that we get at the far end of precession?
Vega.
Yeah, Vega.
Vega. So how does that all line up?
I don't remember.
How does that all line up if we're flying through space at 67,000 miles an hour? How does that line up?
Well, that movement's relative, isn't it? Because you're on a moving body. But
because
I don't know.
The mile fits into all this shit perfectly too.
Yeah.
So where does that old mile come from? England still got to stick with it. The mile's sacred for a ton of different reasons, and I'm getting to the point where I would argue that mile is sacred because that's how fast the Earth is moving through space.
1 mile an hour.
The Earth
and the ancients knew that.
The Earth is at the center of a geoaxial system between Mars and the sun, which is a binary system, and all the numbers match up almost exactly on scale with the Sirius A, B, and possibly C system that we're looking at. So I think I would
hope that I totally see what you're saying about the measure of the Earth and all that. And it's called geometry, as in measuring the Earth. Something tells me that though what you said would totally fit into this, that there's something a bit more fundamental that they're looking at, because that spin and that speed would change of the Earth over time, so it wouldn't be quite constant enough to take accurate measurements from. I've not figured it out yet. You're on the right lines, but there's some fundamental that I've not seen yet that they're taking things from. I've heard Venus as well, the transit of Venus and other things, but I don't think it's planetary. I don't know. I'm not sure. So other things that these numbers make up are things like the Masonic solids. One of my favorites is 2160, makes a cube. The internal angles of a cube is also the diameter of the moon. Is also, you're getting towards like atomic. Is it 108? Is the atomic half of that is the atomic weight of silver, and silver's associated with the moon, and it goes crazy. But it's all time and the basic building blocks of reality, of geometry, it seems. that spout from the interactions of numbers themselves. All this is a result of the logic interactions of one number with another number. I find that out by reading John Dee's work and decoding that.
See, and that goes back how many years? Like 500 years?
Yeah, 5. Just about 5.
I wasn't sure about the breaths per day. That's pretty cool. 25, 9, 20 breaths per day.
Yeah. That's a long
The
processional year.
heartbeats, the heartbeats. I mean, it's all just so tied in.
Yeah, because it's the law of the system, because it's not fucking random, because it's all completely intertwined. If the sun was bigger, there'd be more seconds in the day, and all these sort of things would start to change if you started changing any parameters.
It's got to be said though, on top of that, I totally agree. It's still averages. There's still a little playroom. You know, they're not the world down here isn't so perfect.
No, but then I also I go back with Randall Carlson about this, because I say, well, I was like, dude, I don't think we can measure it accurately enough.
No,
because he thinks the reason the numbers are off a little bit is because they were perfect until the cataclysm that caused the Younger Dryas, and that's thrown everything out of whack a little bit. Whereas I'm like, nah, I think if you had all the numbers, of how far each planet is away from the Earth at every fucking second, and you could plug them into a computer and get all that, then I think they would be perfect. I think we go back and forth on how well our simple asses can measure the distance of the planets and the time it takes them to do a revolution, or all that kind of stuff. I think is we're talking about planets that Pluto's done one fucking revolution over the entire history of the United States, and you're going to tell me that we know these numbers fucking exactly? I would argue we don't, and that when we do someday, that math is going to check out a lot better. I mean, it might check out better now, and they just don't want you to know how well it checks out, because if it's perfect, dude, it becomes almost impossible to argue it's not supernatural. If this is perfect and it's not averages, if all these numbers are perfect exactly, then there's no fudge room. There's no room for faith.
Yeah, well, they are pointing at this being the proof of God. This is the, I could redo this presentation and do it starting at that Masonic G, the geometry, which is the geometry of 7. G is the 7th letter in the alphabet, and you could extrapolate it all from there quite easily. They saw this as the proof of God. This is showing you the basic building blocks of the universe, as they saw it, as I see it. But so this 7-sided pattern, if we could zoom in on one of those, please. This 7-sided pattern, which I've pulled out into a 14-sided pattern, is what is drawing. It's the underlying geometry drawing all of the features on these pillars, all of them to this geometry. Much to my glee and excitement when I got there. I mean, you can see if you zoom in on that one, that your cursor's over now.
That one.
Yeah. So if we just take the line of it's supposed to be Jesus and Peter. In fact, this is a great story to tell right now, because there were so many things that lined up here. So first of all, we'll just talk about the pattern, and then I'll tell you about the story. So if we look down the staff that Jesus is holding, we can see there's a green line that guides where that staff is. The back of Jesus, where he's a bit round looking, a bit fat, like Jesus. And we can see that's a circle. And where Peter's holding his hand up, all the measurements are basically to this pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would that interpose over the flower of life?
Well, the center. Well, funnily, it's great you would say that. Well, the center of the flower of life. The first thing is a vesica piscis, isn't it? It's lots of interlocking circles. Okay. Now here's the story of Jesus right now. So Jesus has died. He's gone down to hell. He's doing all that business, and the apostles are on a boat in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus rocks up on the shore, and he's like, "Have you caught any fish?" And Peter's in the bottom going, who's this dickhead? Like, what? No, mate, we've not caught any fish. And so Jesus, they don't know it's Jesus yet. And Jesus goes, well, cast your nets out to the right and you'll catch 153 fish. And it's like, what is this weirdo doing on the show? Just chuck it out. He's probably going to start throwing rocks at us in a minute. So they throw out the net. And sure enough, they catch 153 fish. Gets back to the shore. Oh, it's you, Jesus. Only Jesus could know it was 153 fish. The weird thing about this story is that story comes from Pythagoras. Pythagoras goes down to the fishermen that have just brought in a haul, and famous vegetarian says, fisherman, if I can guess how many fish are in that catch, you can throw them all back. He says, all right then. He says, there's 153 fish. Sure enough, 153 fish. What's the significance of this? Well, when you remember it's fish, and vesicapiscus means vessel of the fish. When you make a vesicapiscus and you take the measurements, it's 153 is the main measurement you get out of it.
Holy shit. No way.
Yeah. So that is the story that's here. They're going vesicapiscus. And showing you that that's the root of all this stuff. They're showing you this sacred geometry that's cosmic. I can't think of a bigger secret apart from the energy stuff. So that same pattern that is rooted in the vesicapiscus. Well, if we look in the one in the top right, if you don't mind, sorry.
The interesting thing is that there seems to be a bunch of high-level masons that are trying to drip feed this stuff out at the same time.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was a chapel built by lords of the land, so I'm probably fleeing Templars. So they would have had some money to throw around, and it would definitely been masons that do this. So here we've got a very Templar style cross to start with on a shield. That's a warrior's insignia for Christians. So this, we can see it was a triangle, but the pillar's been somewhat destroyed. Well, that side of the triangle is the same slope as the pyramids. It's exactly the same slope. This insignia in the center is exactly the same size as a tarot card, which is down to these proportions too. Underneath that, we've got we've got two hands holding up the shield, but we've got a triple coiled serpent reading 666. Can you see the 666 there? So it's kind of leaning over, and
yep.
And the serpent's got the fruit in its mouth. Well, I know 6 times 6 times 6 is 216 in 2160. It's one of these numbers, twice 108. So, yeah, that's enough. I mean, there's IHSs and INRIs and other things all over these, but there's actually that. If you zoom into the one in the bottom right, there's actually a Jehovah trapezium that we were talking about before. There's like an M shape in the middle of this one on the right. It's like an A. You can kind of see a letter A with a pink top, and there's like a letter M over the top, and that's the same. It's the same proportions as that tetrahedron. So what I'm getting at is that all this same stuff is in all over these pillars. And I didn't know the treasure trove I'd find when I just simply wanted to see that Sator square. So if we go on to the next image, please. So here we go. If we zoom in on the one on the left. So this is that same geometry placed over if you can do a straight zoom in of that pyramid.
That's as close as I can get.
Okay. So
unless I go like that.
Yeah, that'll do for now. We can zoom around it. So you'll notice in the I've actually done one 7-sided shape green, the other one that's inverted in pink, just so it's easy to distinguish. And if we look at wherever there are things within the pyramid, we'll see a green line running along it. And these are just literally as you would make a pentagram with a 5-sided shape. I've made a heptagram with a 7-sided shape, and all things measure up and run along. I never change anything about this pattern. It's the same pattern over the top of everything. The only things that aren't aligned are the 2 shafts that point at stars, but that's for obvious reasons.
Why is that? Why is that for an obvious reason?
Well, because you you can't guarantee whether the stars will be at different elevations, essentially. So you need to. It's not going to apply to that septenary geometry.
Like that shaft right there.
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah.
We see things like this. There's a circle on the top, which would be the size of the moon, and that fits snugly to the top of the pyramid. And then there's a larger one, which is, I don't need to explain everything, but this, like I said, this pattern's always the same. Doesn't matter what I put it over, as long as it's been drawn with it, it's there.
Yeah.
So you can look at Stonehenge, which is also drawn with it. Any size difference is actually down to the drawing and not down to the geometry. So you can see, like in these larger stones in the center, they're angled literally to that septenary geometry.
Oh, right, yeah. Jesus.
The circles around the outside of stones is literally follow the circles that I've drawn. So those two buildings are about the same age, although the stone version of Stonehenge came a bit later. The original wooden logs that would have been in the ground are about the same age as Stonehenge.
Kind of looks like Metatron's cube in a way too, doesn't it?
Well, you can derive this from Metatron's cube.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it is Metatron's cube.
It looks like the UFO I saw in Israel in 1990. Except it was split in half, and the thing was rotating with the halves against themselves like this, and the whole thing was rotating on its axis, but it or not on its axis, but on a axis, I guess. It was kind of doing a but it looked like that, kind of like icosahedron, dodecahedron, but almost more like your shape here, which seems like it's, I guess, 14-sided, right? Multifaceted.
Yeah. It looks more complex than it is. It's 14-sided shape with a few 3, 4, 5 triangles around the outside, and it squares the circle and all those classic things. But the main body of the image is known. Randall touts it, I tout it, but this version is just much more intricate, much more understood. So that's the Narmer tablet, the oldest thing we've got from Egypt. And you can see, if you look at the tails, there's the rings of the tails of these two animals. The rope the guys are stood on and holding, everything matches up beautifully. I mean, really quite beautifully. I'm not sure how old the Narmer tablet is. Let me have a quick check. That's 3100 BC. So it's really that's older than the pyramids.
Maybe.
So, yeah, maybe. That is Manly P. Hall's image of the Holy Grail there on the left, and that matches up with it too. Things don't necessarily follow the lines and the angles and stuff, but there are measurements there. And what it is about the pattern is, you've heard of golden ratio?
Yeah.
Well, this is called something I'd never even heard of, but golden trisection, and that is, rather than it being 2 make the golden ratio, it's a 3 that make it, so each relate to each other, and so it makes it fractal. So you could take that template and kind of move it around or make it bigger and smaller, as long as you like taking a coordinate and then moving it to the next coordinate, it stays fractal. So it's literally fractal in the best meaning of the word.
Yeah.
So with that, I found it a Göbekli Tepe. The little handbag looking thing on the left is actually at the top of that pillar, but as a demonstration of that fractality we were just talking about, it defines the shape of the bag, but also defines the measurements of the pillar. Anywhere you find a break in the vertical structure of that pillar, you'll see a horizontal line on that pattern that just happens to break it up there. When you look at how the design, say, of the scorpion of Scorpio there in the center of the pillar on the right hand image, that it follows. Everything's drawn by it. There's a circle in the center of that pillar too. That's denoted by 2 crossings. It's just there. I find enough places where it's not to know when it is.
Right.
When it is, it just fits beautifully.
Yeah.
So here's my favorite one. This is a cave wall 40,000 years ago. you can see this. I actually have a better one. I wish I'd have sent you that instead. But you can see the shape of the horn is, where the back is, where the belly is, where his bottom is, the where the hoofs terminate. Just everything about it is you know, front of his breast there is exactly on that line. When it's a curved line, you're allowed to. The nature of a curve means you're going to come away from the line. So if there's an extreme curve in there, of course, it's not going to totally follow the line. But you'll see where the beginning and end hit the line.
Yeah. Yeah, this is fascinating.
So what does this mean? It means that we had a high technology, that we knew the size of the Earth, the moon, and the whole reasoning behind the music of the spheres, all those numbers we talked about, platonic solids, the nature of time, nature of the 0 point field, all this stuff, on cave walls. I can't fathom it. I've got other.
They were trying to encode it. It would almost be like built into their whatever they were using. You know what I mean? So it's like it was just like it would be built into their like engineering and architecture software, so that all the buildings were following the. You know, it'd be like into the paintings. I think what we're really looking at sometimes is just like it was a high tech society that we don't have really any evidence of, and they were going around putting this shit in caves, not randomly. You know, you don't do that randomly. If that all lines up and it's perfect like that, then you did it so that people would find it. Yeah.
But I mean, looking at this realistically, look, I found other versions of this. You know, I'm happy with that this thing's real, and it's not just a flight of fancy. Well, I can't think of anything more important that we've discovered about ancient history. I literally can't think of anything more important.
Yeah, I agree. This has been great, Ryan. Is there anything you think we didn't get to here that we need to dig into before we start to wrap up? I mean,
what do you call it again? What do you call it?
I just call it the pattern for now. I'm not sure. Okay. When I looked into alchemy, there's possibly a geometrical philosopher's stone, and that pattern's at the back of alchemy as well. You know, all the alchemical image, you'll find this pattern there as well. So there's obviously references to be in the Grail too, but I also know the stone and the Grail to be analogies for the lower Dantian, which we were talking about before. But equally, that keystone and this geometry, they're also relating back to the sacral bone with it as well. The shape of that Jehovah trapezium. Jehovah trapezium is referencing the sacral bone as well. The keystone. It's like the keystone of your body in an archway. The Masonic arch.
Awesome. Sorry I interrupted you there, Darren. What were you saying?
Oh, nothing really, nothing important. I was just sort of, I mean, it's interesting stuff. It sort of fits in with a bunch of stuff that we've been poking on lately, and maybe even with some of the stuff that's flying around the culture right now with between the Bendall stuff and the Terrence stuff on Joe Rogan and all that kind of stuff. But where can people find all this stuff if they want to follow it? Do you have a website, any books, a social media presence, anything like that?
You can come and find me, Ryan7, on Facebook if you want to chat. I'm usually doing shows on Sundays with the guys at Drawing Down the Stars. Often you'll find me with the Amish Inquisition. Now you find me on Grimerica. But you can come and find me on my own channel too. The Secret Science, Ryan7 1111.
Did we miss your Kickstarter for your tarot?
Oh, it's not been very successful. It turns out that the kind of people that like my work aren't the same kind of people that buy tarot cards. So I'm going to do it again in March and target silly ladies that collect tarot cards.
Okay.
No offense to silly ladies out there.
Okay, let's we'll maybe we can have you back on when that gets reactivated.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a million things to talk about around all this
Yeah.
stuff and my occult research. As I said, I'll be doing this alchemical one for Phil at Amish Inquisition. So, you want me on for that? I can do that presentation for you too.
Beauty. Yeah, let's look at doing that again down the road. Well, Ryan, we appreciate you staying up late for us over there in England. We hope you're staying safe with all the well, I mean, the news we're getting here seems like it's a little bit of a ruckus.
Not great, mate.
Yeah,
it's not good.
So stay
Things
safe.
falling apart.
And we're hoping to make it over there next year to look at stuff that might relate to this. So, I mean, if we, when we actually get some dates set down, I mean, it might be interesting to see if we can bump India along the way somewhere or work something out where we have you come and hang out with us and go over, because getting you and Randall together in the same room going over this
that
stuff
would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not had any contact with Randall. I'd like to, though. We'll get the guys from the Amish Inquisition out as well. That'll be right, laugh.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll be in touch. We're still like figuring it out, but it's something we're definitely leaning into right now. So
superb. Sounds great.
All right, Ryan. This has been fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Stay cool. Speak soon.
And that was our chat with Ryan 7 from across the pond. Good one. I mean, the bros are going back over the pond this year too to do a bunch of like weird testing on the vases, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was talking to Russ yesterday. He's saying those because they're going to be there for 10 days, but they don't have a lot of time to do much because it's almost all taken up by doing some cool testing stuff. So
what do you know what kind of testing they're going to do?
Oh, no, I gotta open up I gotta check.
Open up the text.
And the worst thing is that these guys don't text. You know, they
where are they going? Are they going in?
They talk to their telegrams.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with talking. You got to get used to that. Listening to people talk in their telegrams. Oh, now he's got to listen to it on the down low.
He's listening.
Just play it. Play it in the speakers.
I don't want to do that. He hasn't given me permission to do that. They're doing some scans and tests at some museum over there. I don't even want to say museum because you know what I mean? I don't know if it's public information or not. So.
All right.
But interesting stuff, of course.
What a time. Yeah. What a time. I feel like it's all coming out, man. It really is. Coming out. To have Ryan come over and share the same stuff we've been talking about, not the same in that way, but I mean, it really complements what we've been talking about. That's pretty mind blowing. I didn't realize it was going to be that in depth with all the stuff we've been hitting. So good. Big thanks to Ryan for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks to our lords out there. No ladies yet, but we do have some lords, and we have a bunch of nobles that help keep us in business. We could definitely use some more. Grimerica.ca/support. If you're getting some value from our little podcast here, join the 1 in 100. Head over to Grimerica.ca/support today. Sign up for a monthly or make a one-time donation. It really does help us not quit podcasting and keep going, you know, when we get some people that we know are getting some value from the show and enough value to actually present some value back our way. Of course, head over to adultbrain.ca for the audiobooks, GrimericaOutlawed.ca for the other podcasts, a little more controversial, and contact at the cabin for the trips. We got a great one coming up in November with some availability left. And I think, like, as of this recording, there's only like 2 or 3 spots for that Columbia Gorge tour. So if that's something you're interested in, head over to contact@thecabin.com today and check that out. I think that's about it. Spam Graham at Grimerica.com. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.